Join us today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where we review the 2023 season for the San Francisco Giants.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And guess what? If you do, you have an opportunity to get a little bonus for doing that. Just take a screenshot of your review, send it over to fantasymds@gmail.com, or even just send it to us on Twitter, Instagram, whatever is easiest for you, and you will get a chance to join our listener league for next season. And lastly, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And guys, real quick, before we get into the nitty gritty here, I need to talk to you about Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price always guaranteed. All right, guys, so as I mentioned at the top, talking about the San Francisco Giants, they finished in fourth place in the NL West this year, 79 wins, 83 losses. Honestly, did a little bit better than I thought they would have. Not too many big names that are fantasy relevant here, so, we're going to do the best we can for you today. But, Matt, I think there's one very obvious one that we need to talk about first.
Oh, absolutely, and that's my boy, Logan Webb. Honestly, in my opinion, the only consistent bright spot of this whole team. And if we have time, I have one other name I want to talk about at the end of this because he's not on the list, but it is what it is.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe.
We could make time.
Maybe. But Logan Webb here, honestly, had a fantastic season. Like, quite honestly, I've been waiting for a season like this for a very long time for Logan Webb. If you've been with us since last year, I was calling this kind of season. He finally put it together, and it was magical. 216 at bats, 194 stolen. I want to say stolen bases, strikeouts.
You said at bats too.
Oh my God, today. Okay, 216 innings pitched, 194 strikeouts, a 3.25 ERA with a 1.0 WHIP. I mean, you can't really beat that in terms of that. The only thing you probably ask that would leave me desiring to ask more of Logan Webb is, can you get that to a K per 9 to just be like super elite? Not just elite, but super elite with a K per 9. That's the only thing, like, okay, please, Logan Webb, develop. But I mean, hey, I'll take that, right? Innings eater over 200 innings with 194 strikeouts. What can you ask more of this guy? And honestly, to boot, 11 wins. Now, if San Francisco somehow figures it out to bring more talent onto this team, Logan Webb's opportunities to win more games could be astronomical because the dude is just unstoppable when he gets on the mound. I love Logan Webb. Next year, I think he's like a top, 12 to 14 pitcher for me once I finally figure it out where I'm actually going to get my rankings going. Because honestly, he's consistent, he's reliable, and the bonus of pitching in San Francisco half your games is another added bonus to Logan Webb.
Yeah, Matt, you're spot on there. I have Logan Webb as my number 11 starting pitcher going into next season. He's earned the title of ace. I think he can anchor your fantasy baseball staff. You might need to go and get a strikeout guy, as your number 2 or number 3 starting pitcher, but hey, that's fine. I want to give you the last 3 seasons for Logan Webb combined. So that's 91 starts, 37 wins, 25 losses, 3.07 ERA, 556 innings, 515 strikeouts with a 1.11 WHIP and a 3 FIP. Once again, FIP is a ERA indicator. It's kind of an indicative stat, shows you where ERA is likely headed to rather than where it is. So he pitches right at his FIP, which is awesome. honestly, not much else to say about Logan Webb. I think he's like the new Sandy Alcantara type guy, where he's going to throw a bunch of innings. He's going to be right or hover around that K per 9, probably a little bit under it. The only thing that you can't really guarantee is wins, because that San Fran team, I don't know where they're really headed. It doesn't look like they're headed up. But, the controls only gotten better over the last few years as well. So sky is the limit for Logan Webb. He's got the stuff to go for that K per 9 too, but I think he'd rather have that pinpoint control, because his sinker is absolutely wicked. The slider's very, very good. He has that changeup to throw them, batters off a little bit. Just very, very good repertoire. I really like Logan Webb. I think he's earned, the title of an ace, especially when it comes to fantasy baseball. Let's move on to somebody who pretty much had a breakout year. Let's talk about Thairo Estrada. I really like Thairo. I had him in a few leagues this year. He did deal with a couple of injuries. He had that fractured left hand. He also had the sprained left wrist. So, that kept him out for a little bit, but the overall numbers on the year are still pretty nice. 120 games for Estrada, 495 at-bats, 63 runs, 26 doubles, 2 triples, 14 homers, 49 RBIs, 23 steals. The guy really doesn't know how to take a walk. 22 walks to 120 strikeouts, so probably not as good as in points leagues as he is in Roto, but a 271 batting average. I really like Estrada, 28 years old next year. Let's see where I have him at second base, because that's probably where we're going to be taking him. I have him as my number 9 second baseman. Really likes what he brings to the table. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed. The RBIs leave room to be desired. Runs mediocre on this San Francisco team. There's not really anybody doing much there, but I do like Thairo Estrada.
Yeah, no, Thairo really had a great season overall. Just, I feel like the injury kind of, slowed him down, because I feel like if he just didn't get hurt, that heater just would have continued all season. We would have saw a real true breakout. But I mean, overall, the stats aren't atrocious, like Dom read off and whatnot. So I'm impressed with the kid. I think he has another level. Age 27. I mean, normally you don't buy that breakout, like I was saying with Jorge Mateo and whatnot. But Estrada, I just feel like has been slowly just kind of somewhat showing off a little potential, and maybe this next year, if he could be healthy, maybe take it to the next level and be a true fantasy contributor. It's not like I'm going to draft him incredibly high, nowhere near it, but he's somebody I'm definitely willing to take a flyer on going into the end of the drafts, last 5 picks, where okay, he has the perfect Swiss Army knife of position eligibility between second base, outfield, and shortstop, depending on the platform you're playing on. So I like him as a whole and that gadget player. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about Camilo Doval. I almost want to call him Camilo DeVille, but had a great season. Really did not expect this wild of a season from him. With 67 innings pitched, the 87 strikeouts really stick out to me, along with that, to boot the 39 saves. And then the sub 3 ERA. We know he's good. Last year he had 27. Last year he had 80 Ks to his 67 innings pitched, and he had a 2.53 ERA. But for him to go up another 12 saves with the way that San Francisco was this year is just really impressive. I like Doval as a whole. I think that he's going to be, a really good closer moving forward that everybody is going to be aiming. I think I'm going to have him probably as a top 5 closer for next year's season, just based off of, if you look at his production over the last 2, with the well over K per 9, the low ERA, the FIP, fielding independent pitching, is a predictive stat, is, pretty on par to his actual ERA. A lot of this just seems real. It seems like he's the real deal. And as long as he gets in these opportunities, why wouldn't I draft him as a top 5 as my number 1 closer? Because you know what you're about to get. And maybe this 39 is a real thing. I'm not saying he's going to get 39 next year, but 35 could be in a range of possibilities. And before I let Dom give his take on Mr. Doval and we keep going on the rest of the show, I have somebody great to talk about. October baseball is back, and you can make your postseason debut with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Join FanDuel today, and you'll get started with a $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create a new account. Then you can get in the action from first pitch until final out. Bet on everything from strikeouts to home runs to who will win the game. And if you don't want to wait the whole game to get the W and get paid, predict what's going to happen in the next at bat with quick bets. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. Step up to the plate this postseason with the $200 in bonus bets guaranteed to make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the MLB. All right, Dom, I say go for it, bud.
Matt, real quick, I think that was the cleanest ad that you've read, like in the history of you reading ads on this podcast. So shout out to you for that one, my brother.
Thank you. I've been going back like Billy Madison style to school, back to score, back to score, and you know, I got a really great teacher.
It's paying off.
She's very easy to look at and pay attention to. You know,
there you go.
It's great.
Very nice, sir. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
But yeah, let's keep things moving here. Yeah, Camilo Duvall, he's the man. Very, very elite closer. I have him as my number 7 closer going into next year. I can't really see him pushing him up higher than that, but he's literally one of the most reliable closers in all of baseball. I really don't have too much to add here besides 70 saves or almost 70 saves over the last 2 seasons combined. Big strikeout numbers. He's got good stuff. His fastball, he averaged 100 miles an hour on his it wasn't even it was his cutter. He averaged 100 miles an hour on his cutter for the season. He throws a good slider that sits at around 89. His sinker sits at about 98. He has really good stuff. I think Duvall is somebody that maybe there's even another level here, possibly. I don't know as far as the ERA, but the strikeouts, I think the strikeouts could even take a step up next year because the stuff is elite. The control is very, very good as well. We're getting better with a 1.13 whip. He's down from last year, a 1.24. I really think he's starting to figure it out. And guess what? He's only going to be 26 next year, Camilo Duvall. Definitely a name that I'm going to be targeting in fantasy drafts as long as we don't have to pay too much for him. Now, let's move on to the rest of this team. It's not a very, very fun bunch of names here, but we're going to do our due diligence. Let's move on to the former Met. Let's talk about J.D. Davis. Now, J.D. Davis was serviceable at times this year. I know he was getting picked up and dropped a couple of times on the year. As a 30-year-old, J.D. Davis, 144 games, 480 at-bats, 61 runs, 23 doubles, 18 homers, 69 RBIs, 248 batting average. Honestly, not really too much to say here. We know who J.D. Davis is. He's got a little bit of power at this point in his career. Batting average leaves room to be desired. He doesn't really steal bases. The counting stats are probably going to be mediocre if he's back in San Fran next year, which I believe he's still under contract. No, he's actually going to be a free agent, so he might not even be back with the team. So we'll kind of see how, things go here. Just not really a guy I'm looking forward to for fantasy next year. More of a 15-man, NL only if he's back with the Giants type of play for J.D. Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about JD. Fantasy-wise, I don't really foresee him being too relevant. I think I did some of my rankings where he's ranked, and he's nowhere even in the drafting range at this point. Yeah. It's just whatever. He'll be a great waiver wire player next year for those short stints. He's good. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about, another player that's really good for deep leagues, and that's Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb, you know what? He always is reliable when it comes to, coming off the waivers and then being successful for you and then dropping him the second he's not. But, you look at his overall numbers for the year, and they're actually really not bad at his age 35 season with 151 strikeouts, 151 innings pitched. Man, I'm all over the place today, but I can read an ad, so we're good. Now, 151 strikeouts, 130. Oh, God, I did it again. Innings pitched, 131 strikeouts. There we go. A 3.87 ERA with a 1.32 WHIP. Ultimately, not bad stats. ERA is pretty much legitimate because his FIP is a 4.01, so he's right on par. I will never draft him unless I'm in like a 15-man league, 14-man league where, things are rolling down and like, things are getting desperate and I missed out on a lot of starting pitching and he's more of a depth piece at that point. We got to see. I just, Alex Cobbs is somebody you're just going to end up dropping and picking up all season long in terms of draft season. Don't even bother.
Yeah, I mean, kind of know. Once again, said it before, I'm going to say it again. We know who Alex Cobb is at age 35. High 3 ERA. Not really much of a K per 9 type of guy. Never really was in his career. Control, not fantastic. Once again, never really has been, a big thing for him. And another guy who's, we don't know if he's coming back. There's a team option for 2024. Let's see if San Fran picks it up. So not even 100% sure where Cobb is going to be pitching. And who knows, maybe he calls it a career at age 36. It's been a serviceable career for Alex Cobb. We'll see where the thing goes. Let's actually talk about somebody who's a little bit more interesting here. Let's talk about Wilmer Flores. Honestly, guy had a strong season. Just another guy that towards the end of the season got very, very hot. Picked him up in a couple of leagues. I know a lot of people were picking him up. Age 31, another former New York Met. I forgot Wilmer Flores. 126 games for him, 405 at-bats, 51 runs, 22 doubles, 23 homers, 60 RBIs, and a 284 batting average. Not really you see a guy at age 31 have a career season, but honestly, pretty much the best, season for Wilmer Flores' career. Just not another guy that I'm going to go out looking for drafting next year. He plays a bunch of different positions, once again, depending on what kind of league you play in and what they, gauge their position eligibility like. But, Wilmer Flores most likely has a couple of different spots. He actually will be with the Giants again next year. He's still under contract, so he's probably going to play. If you need a corner middle infield, I believe he's eligible at first, second, and third. Just not really much to say. Not really targeting him. Probably one of the last picks of your draft for the most part. Even in a 15-man league, probably a later guy, corner, middle infielder type of dude. Doesn't steal bases. You're really just counting on him trying to repeat that solid batting average and giving you a couple home runs along the way. Not really much to talk about here with the breakout season, age 31 for Wilmer Flores.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one. I mean, you know what? This team just makes me sad. I really was hoping that we'd have an actual Giant fan on this podcast, episode with us this week. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. So it is what it is. It would have been the only way we can have some light on this, essentially. But we're gonna move on. I really don't have much to say on Wilmer Flores. Let's talk about Kyle Harrison. He's interesting, right? Obviously top end prospect coming into the year. Had some bright moments, had some ugly moments, but I mean, that's to be expected of a young pitcher coming up in the league. Ultimately his overall numbers aren't atrocious. 34 innings pitched, 35 strikeouts, 4.15 ERA with a 1.15 whip with a FIP of 5.53. So I don't know how much we're buying of the ERA or how much that's, bunched up in like one or two starts. So we'll see what Kyle Harrison can bring to the table next year. Ultimately, he's somebody I'm probably going to be taking a shot on. And if he doesn't really make a splash come spring training, because he could be somebody that can provide some serious fantasy value in 2024. But it all depends on if it hits or not. And it could be a slow start. It could be, more of a guy that we say, hey, don't draft and keep on your watch list, because if he does figure it out, it could be really special. We shall see. He isn't to me, a Grayson Rodriguez or, Logan Gilbert. Yuri Perez, or even how Logan Gilbert was when he got the call. Kyle Harrison really didn't show up for a full time like the others have. So Kyle Harrison is somebody that we're going to just have to keep right here in the back of our mind and, make sure that we're paying attention to him come spring training. But before we move on, and Dom can again try and get his word in, we have one last sponsor for you.
Guys, I need to talk to you about Game Time. Have you ever tried to buy tickets to see your favorite artist or sports team and wound up being stressed out by how much of a hassle it can be? Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. That's why you need to check out the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Using the Game Time app is super rewarding with flash deals and last minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, images and views of the seats you'll be sitting in, lowest price guarantee, and event cancellation protection. I mean, there's a reason it's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets and the lowest prices always guaranteed. All right, guys. So this is finally where I start to get a little bit excited, starting to talk about these young guys that have upside, kind of, all right, they're kind of almost the mystery box thing, it could be anything. But with Kyle Harrison, there's a lot of upside. Let's talk about the 2022 season in the minors for Kyle Harrison. He had 25 starts, 271 ERA, 113 innings, 186 strikeouts in 113 innings, and a 1.13 whip. Now, very, very promising upside. The kid's got really, really good stuff. The fastball sits around 94. He throws a slurve, which is a pretty good pitch for him. The changeup is all right, stuff that he's still working on at the moment. I think the big thing when he got called up, which is super interesting to me, is he gave up 8 home runs in 7 starts. And you know what? The ERA wasn't even atrocious. It was a 4.15. As Matt mentioned. And then the whip, really, really good, 1.15. So, he wasn't really walking too many guys, didn't give up a crazy amount of hits, just a lot of balls flew out of the park on him. I think he was trying to make some adjustments this year because even in the minors, he had a 4.52 ERA, very uncharacteristic of Kyle Harrison. I think Harrison is going to be a sleeper next year. Let's see where I currently have him ranked. It's probably pretty low. I have him as my number 97 starting pitcher. So kind of one of your last picks of the draft. You throw the dart that way. It's a good ballpark to pitch in. I think the coaching staff there is going to work with him. They're going to kind of figure a few things out. And it's a great park to pitch in. Once again, he's not going to give up 8 home runs in 7 starts. I think that's a very big outlier for Harrison. Harrison's definitely a name that, I want to see what happens with him next year. I won't be afraid to throw my dart Harrison's way come draft time next season. But let's talk about Luis Matos. Nice young player for, the San Francisco Giants. Didn't really blow anybody away when he got the call. He was, very mediocre through 76 games. Once again, Luis Matos, 228 at-bats, 24 runs, 13 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, 14 RBIs, 3 steals. Love the strikeout to walk ratio with 20 walks to 33 strikeouts, 250 batting average. He actually dominated the minors this year. 63 games for Matos down there, 254 at-bats, 41 runs, 14 doubles, 2 triples, 12 homers, 38 RBIs, 15 steals, and a 331 batting average. Now, this is a kid who's really known for the batting average. He's got a little bit of speed, a little bit of pop. If he could ever really pull it all together and, develop, maybe get a little bit more meat on those bones at 5'11", 160, there's upside. There's upside here. Probably not, once again, not a name that I'm going to go out of my way to draft. This is probably more of a deeper league guy. I really have to figure out where I'm ranking him as far as outfield goes. I really don't think I threw him on the list. No, still kind of working out the kinks with these rankings. And guys, if you do want our rankings, hey, join us on Subtext. We're going to be releasing them soon. A lot of good preseason stuff for 2024 going to be on Subtext soon, so don't forget about that. But Matt, thoughts on Matos?
So my thing with Matos is I just really don't care. That's really just the standpoint on it.
Matt's out on the Giants.
Pretty much. It's just one of those. They're just one of those teams that are just scrappy. They're a really good baseball team. They're not really valuable for fantasy. Exactly. So, there's some names that are interesting, like the next guy, but Matos is just not my cup of tea.
Fair enough.
he'll go on the watch list. Or if he has a monster spring, we could talk about him again. But I need to see it. I need to see some kind of like shine. But let's talk about, since I already kind of like teased him a little bit, let's talk about Marco Luciano. Luciano, honestly, is very interesting. And you wouldn't say that by looking at his numbers from, being up in the bigs. You wouldn't say that by looking at 2023's batting average. But I'm just gonna point out a few things that are kind of like what's grabbing my eye, right? So in 2023, he had 269 at bats, 42 runs, 14 doubles, 15 bombs, 40 ribs, 6 stolen bases, 46 walks to 100 strikeouts. It batted ugly 223. But I like the walk to strikeout ratio, right? Again, in 2022, he only got about 227 at bats. He had 33 runs, 12 doubles, 11 bombs, 36 ribs, and 26 walks to 58 strikeouts, batted 269. And then in 2021, he had 19 home runs. And again, the walk to strikeout numbers are there. So kind of in 2021. I like it.
48 walks, 126 strikeouts.
Yeah, okay. But ultimately, you're looking at a 50% strike rate. I feel like, I haven't watched Giants. Like, okay, that's not the game I'm going to go out of my way and watch. But if I had to go and really go and do a deep dive, which I haven't yet, probably could say he probably fly balls out or ground balls out a lot. And that's probably his biggest issue. And I look at, what he did when he first got the call up in July. He was batting about 273. Didn't really do much within, 11 at-bats. And then he played about 9 games in September, had terrible batting average, but he had 5 walks to 12 strikeouts. I like that. Okay, plate discipline seems to actually be there, right? Did nothing really else with his opportunity at that point besides hit 2 doubles. So he's just a name that, like, obviously I'm not going to tell you to draft. He's, again, probably going to be, unless he shows out in spring training, a name we're going to be probably the first week that we do every season, which is guys to watch, to put on the watch list, to keep an eye on. Let's see what he does. And if Luciano decides to pop, he's going to be interesting. He might be a great waiver wire pickup. I mean, you look at him and you go, okay, he's really nothing impressive. 6'1", 178 pounds, probably like 180 pounds soaking wet. But, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, you look at the Martian and he just rocks bombs, but they're nowhere in the same stratosphere. But Luciano could be interesting.
See, I think this is the one guy we're really going to differ on. I've never been a fan of Luciano. There was a lot of hype back when he first came over to the States back in like 2019. And he looked good in rookie ball, low A. He had good numbers. Then as you started to see him climb through, the minor leagues, he really was starting to get exposed, in my opinion. He never really lived up to anywhere near the hype that he had. Hasn't had a good season since 2019, in my opinion. I guess the 2022 season was okay, was decent. Didn't even steal a base that year, though. There's steals. I can't even say steals upside, to be honest with you, because I haven't really seen him do much of it yet. Power, maybe a little bit. I just a guy that, I'm not a big fan of him. I think he's overrated. I think we're going to start to see the prospect fatigue with him. I think if you're in a dynasty keeper where, you can make off-season moves, if you like Luciano, you can go out there and probably get him for almost dirt cheap at this point. But me personally, I've just never been a fan. I know there's a lot of guys that really love him. Just hasn't been one of those guys that I really liked. Matt, I know you said there was somebody you wanted to talk about. I don't know if you want to throw this guy in now, and maybe if we'll save this other guy that I had for another time. I'm actually curious to see who you had.
Go with Wise Hunt. I feel like we just need to talk about him.
Okay, yeah. Carson Wisenhunt is the top pitching, besides Kyle Harrison. He's the top pitching prospect that hasn't debuted yet for San Fran. Honestly, I really like this guy. 6'3", 209, 23 years old. Actually hit, he just turned 23, so happy, birthday to Carson Wisenhunt. Honestly, a lot of upside. He had 16 starts this year in the minors, 2.45 ERA, 58 innings, 83 strikeouts. Batters hit 177 against him and a 102 whip. A lot of upside, in my opinion. I think he's going to be very, very good. He has a very, very, very nasty changeup, keeps batters off balance. The fastball is, decent. He, tops out at around 96, usually sits around 93, 94. If he really can develop that third pitch, if he gets a breaking pitch, the curveball is something that he doesn't use a lot, but it's something that he could potentially develop. This kid, you're probably going to hear about him a lot over the next couple of years. I think he's going to be very good, especially if he stays with San Fran. As we said about all of their pitchers, it's a great park to pitch in. Somebody I'm really interested to see how his minor league season goes next year.
Yeah, for real. I mean, you know what? I didn't want to bring up my other guy because he's nowhere as good as this dude. I think ultimately this is a good call for you, by you, and quite honestly, you handled them well. I don't really have much to say, and we don't really have the time for another name. So ultimately, I'm going to say, let's get us out of here.
All right, guys. So that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Also, thank you to our everydays and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, make sure to be on the lookout for a new episode tomorrow where we talk San Diego Padres. But guys, until then,
Peace.
see you.